Welcome back. Let's dive right in, shall we? In our UpGoWise Masterclass series, we spend a lot of time looking at how we operate as individuals. But the Systems View of Life by Fritjof Capra and Pierluigi Luisi, well, it's not just a textbook about ecology, it's actually a book about pressure. It explores exactly why the parts always obey the patterns. You see, the whole idea of self-mastery fails completely when you treat the self as just an isolated spare part. Start with the orbit, not the planet. Think about that for a second. You could literally polish every single trait of your personality to absolute perfection and still manage to break the hull. That's the hard truth here. Capra and Luisi aren't asking you to just be more intense or to push harder. No, they're asking you to step back and see the entire field. The authors wrote this after system science totally upended the old machine-like view of the world. Honestly, that proud habit we all have of constantly optimizing every little isolated part, it's just exhausting you, because the mechanism you're ignoring is the relationship between those parts. The old map tells us the world is made up of separate things that cut and isolate, but this book, it shows us the world is made of relations that weave and connect. Now, that might sound kind of gentle and poetic, right? Until it actually touches your daily life. Your calendar, your physical body, your work, your moods. They don't live in neatly separated rooms. They bruise one another, quietly. The body carries what the planner denies. The jaw tightens right before the spreadsheet even opens. The chest pulls in just before delivering that hard message. The hand automatically reaches for a busy task just to avoid an uncomfortable truth. You aren't broken by one single cause. You are shaped by a weave. Section 1, the collapse, and specifically the pain of exhaustion. You know, one way of thinking says you just need to fix the weak component. But the other way says you need to change the pattern that keeps weakening it in the first place. Think of your life as a strategy system. Every single choice creates load. Every promise you make creates gravity. Let's trace how this cascading chain actually works. Looking through this strategy lens really matters, because systems tend to punish late honesty. It starts small. A missed boundary becomes a jammed schedule. That schedule becomes a hardened mood. The mood turns into a sharp tone. And that tone, it creates a hostile room. Before you know it, the room starts making decisions for you. Strategy isn't just a list of goals. Strategy is literally the design of your interactions. It goes like this. If your body sleeps poorly, your judgment hardens. If your judgment hardens, your relationships start to shrink. And if relationships shrink, the work just gets louder. And then you end up calling yourself undisciplined. But no, you simply built a loop that eats discipline. A system doesn't ever ask what you meant to do. It just returns exactly what you arranged. This is exactly why the systems view of life can feel a little severe at times. The real pain starts when your daily performance fuses with your actual identity. Suddenly, taking a rest feels dangerous. A simple pause feels like treason. Your mind just keeps checking itself over and over for some sort of moral failure. And that inner courtroom, it wastes your energy. It burns glucose. It literally narrows your vision. The self ultimately becomes both the prisoner. Section 2. The pale blue dot, focusing on scale and placement. The old machine view tells us parts first, life second. But the systems view says pattern first, and the parts are changed by that pattern. This is where the book becomes really intimate. The authors move seamlessly across biology, the human mind, society, and ecology. They're asking us whether our so-called intelligence is really just cutting life up into dead pieces. And that wide range of topics, it's not just decoration, it's the entire point. Picture that famous pale blue dot photograph. The Voyager spacecraft turns back, and Earth is just a tiny speck caught inside a beam of light. There are no borders showing, no titles. There is only placement, only scale. Just a small point, held inside forces way too vast to even name. Real self-mastery begins right at the moment when the self stops posing as the center of the universe. The planet isn't weak just because it orbits something else. It exists entirely because that relation holds it there.
You know, you aren't losing your dignity when you finally acknowledge your dependencies. You're just becoming accurate. And accuracy? That's mercy with a spine. Sometimes the hardest truth is the smallest one. Your exhaustion, it might not actually be a flaw in your willpower at all. It might just be a map error. You've been mapping yourself as a closed object, but you live as an open system. So the repair can't just be about applying more private force or trying harder. It has to include context. It has to include better relations.
Section 3. The architecture of the loop. What keeps it alive? Well, a linear mind always asks, what caused the pain? But a systemic mind asks, what keeps it alive? Just making that one simple shift is going to change your practice entirely. This loop that eats your discipline, it essentially has three teeth. First, you hide your fatigue just to protect your image. Second, that hidden fatigue starts to distort your choices. And third, those distorted choices create even more fatigue. And now your image needs even more protection. Listen, this isn't weakness. This is architecture. In any strategy, a bad structure will turn even your best moves into a loss.
So the practice here is pretty clear. You need to map out the recurring loop before you judge the person caught inside it. Ask yourself where the pressure enters. Ask which hidden reward is actually feeding the damage. What does your system reward, while your mouth claims the exact opposite? Yeah, that question bites a little, doesn't it? It should. But this is the cold gift of systems thinking. You finally stop asking, who am I? And you start asking, what am I a part of?
And once you ask that, the whole room changes. You realize your work is just a field of cues. Your habits are like small laws. And your mood is just data from a network. And this is exactly why exhaustion can feel so incredibly unfair. You might literally be doing so many of the right things, but you're doing them inside a wrong relation. Your effort is totally real, but the result comes out warped. A broken system can completely waste your virtue. Section 4, Strategy for a Living Self. How do we arrange the conditions? Because once you actually see this loop, you kind of lose the right to just worship sheer effort alone. Effort stays noble, sure, but it loses its throne. The throne moves over to strategic design. You have to figure out which exact relation, which specific chair, which arbitrary rule is creating the most needless heat in your life. You need to arrange the conditions.
The absolute peak insight of the system's view of life is this concept called autopoiesis. It basically means self-making. A living system keeps producing the organization that keeps it alive. Life isn't located in the isolated thing itself. Life arises in the pattern. Real agency isn't just a raw brute force push. Agency is the skill of arranging the right conditions. So for the next 7 days, I want you to ask for a cleaner pattern. Just pick one recurring drain in your life and change one single relation. Move the meeting, name the fear a little earlier, shorten the promise you make, protect that 1 hour right before sleep. But the move has to be small enough to actually hold, because a system trusts proof. It doesn't trust empty vows. And honestly, this is why seeing this visible structure removes the teeth of shame. It's the very first space where your choices can actually breathe.
The thread we left open earlier was all about the center. You probably thought the center was you, but the center is actually the pattern you keep obeying. The orbit explains the planet far better than the planet explains itself. So your next question isn't how to push harder. Your next question is, what relation has to change first? Bring that exact question into your daily practice. Take it to your desk, to your body, to your inbox. Let this explainer of the system's view of life stay close to the work you're doing. Always choose pattern over pressure. So what pattern are you going to design tomorrow? Deep dive the philosophy at upgowise.com.